really. But I tell you what makes us look even sicker overseas is this explosion of Jew hatred in Australia. It's shamed us. But at least today, more than 600 high-profile leaders of business, the media, the law, universities have published in our newspapers one of those rare joint letters that I think are worth something, calling out this anti-Semitism very directly. Now, who signed the letter? That's, of course, interesting. Include 19 former state premiers like Jeff Kennett, Daniel Andrews, actually, Gladys Berejiklian, Anna Bligh, media bosses, of course, like my own Lachlan Murdoch, our boss here, News Corporation Australia boss Michael Miller, and many others. But who didn't sign it could be even more interesting. I didn't see one leader of a big bank there. None. On The Voice, they've been very noisy on this. What's that about? Scared of offending customers? Or didn't get asked? I don't know. Joining me from Israel, where he is visiting, is Jeremy Leibler, President of the Zionist Federation of Australia. Jeremy, great to catch up with you again, even if the subject matter is not great. Not one big boss, bank boss, signed this joint letter. Are you disappointed?
Oh, look, Andrew, I'm very pleased with the letter. It was an important statement. It's, on the one hand, a little bizarre that it was required, given there really is not anything particularly controversial in the letter. It shouldn't be controversial to condemn anti-Semitism. I think it was a very powerful grassroots initiative of a group of business leaders. So I wouldn't want to draw too many conclusions from the absence of a signature or not, that they may or may not have been asked. And from what I understand, there is still an opportunity for many to sign up on the website and add their name to the list. And from what I've heard, there are already up to 9,000 that have signed that statement since it was released this morning.
Well, to better news, I think. The prisoner swap between Israel and the Hamas terrorist group that runs Gaza. Look, it did finish after 4 days. Hamas released 50 of the Jewish hostages, women and children, in exchange for 150 Palestinian criminals, including terrorists, in Israeli jails. Now there's going to be 2 more days of truce and prisoner swaps. 20 more Jewish hostages, 60 more Palestinian criminals. Fantastic news, especially for the families. But it does come with a risk to Israel's army in Gaza, doesn't it? 6 days of truce in all now. 6 days of Hamas preparing defences.
As I landed in Tel Aviv, there was news of the truce had been announced. This was just late last week. And walking around the streets of Israel and meeting people, need to appreciate that every child being held hostage feels like they are the child of all the people of Israel, both Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis, I should say as well. And same with every son, every daughter, every parent, every grandparent. And you can see the anxiety on everyone's faces, because I think this country understands probably better than anyone else what a difficult conundrum they are in. On the one hand, everyone deeply, desperately wants to bring back the hostages. It's one of the core priorities of the IDF's mission in Gaza. But at the same time, they're conscious that there is a very significant price to pay. These people being released, contrary to the way in which some media outlets have described them as children, these are people that have attempted murder on innocent Israelis, stabbings, suicide bombings. The only difference is that they failed. So these are very serious terrorists being released now into the public. And there's a real trade-off here for the people of Israel. But the priority is to secure the release of these hostages, because fundamentally Israel values life.
Well, you mentioned the children. One chilling detail there. I note that Hamas still has not freed a mother and her 2 children, the youngest hostage, in fact, just the baby. Apparently because some other terrorist group has bought the hostages, is now holding them. Jeremy Leibler, that strikes me as extremely ominous.
Deeply, deeply concerning. The psychological warfare that has been deployed by Hamas in the course of these hostage release, knowing how every Israeli is sitting on the edge of their chair waiting for these hostages to be released, is incredibly, incredibly traumatic for the entire country. There was also at one point the Qatari Prime Minister announced that the truce may not be extended because 40 of the additional women and children being held by Hamas, Hamas don't actually know where they are at the moment, because they're being held by other civilians that took them into Gaza. And I think this is part of the story that people don't quite understand. After Hamas initially breached the border and committed the atrocities, there were many, many hours where hundreds of Gazan civilians crossed the border. They participated in the murders, they participated in the rapes. And then after they did so, they looted the homes of the people that they murdered. They stole children's bicycles. There is video evidence of this. And now we see that these civilians are holding some of these hostages. I don't know what other society exists today where ordinary civilians participate in the kidnapping of women and children.
Look, it's a shocking, shocking story, and you haven't even detailed something I guess we don't really want to talk about much, and that is, in fact, some of the hostages could, in fact, be dead, more than the 3 or 4 we've been told so far. Jeremy Leibler, thank you so much indeed for making time for us.